Hey guys, today we're doing predictions for UFC Fight Night 102, Lewis versus Abdurakhimov. This fight's taking place on a Friday. I believe it's on Fight Pass, although I'm not sure about that. But I won't be watching it live, obviously. I'm going to be at work. And I don't mind it because this card is very, very weak. An extremely underwhelming lineup, one of the most uninteresting ones that I can remember from the last year or even from before then. Just a really pathetic effort from the UFC and the matchmakers, and especially for the follow-up New York event. I don't know. I would have expected them to put something somewhat special together to follow UFC 205 as the second event in New York. But this is not good at all. Very underwhelming card. Follow me on Twitter at MMA Breakdown 0. My link is in the description. I'm currently 470 in the world for the year on UFC Fantasy. I will do a video recapping my picks from every event from, I think, UFC 205 through the previous one, Fight Night, or the Tough 24 finale. I'm inside the top 500 right now. That was my goal. Hopefully I can stay there. I can't say that I will because you don't know. You just make your picks and you see how it plays out. But that was my goal, and if I can achieve that, that'll be 3 years in a row that I finish within the top 500. And I pride myself on my complete transparency. So I'm going to get the evidence for those picks from those events out there on video and then keep you guys updated through the end of the year. All right, so the first fight at middleweight, Keith Barish versus Ryan James. Who cares about this fight? Honestly, Keith Barish hasn't fought since July of 2014 when he was utterly dominated by Robert Drysdale. Got submitted, who it's kind of funny that was his only fight because Drysdale went on to never fight in the UFC again. I think he got busted for PEDs or something or other, and is not in the UFC anymore. So it was a it was a very unimpressive performance against Drysdale. And Ryan James, I think he was scheduled for his UFC debut earlier this year, but I don't know the guy, so I got nothing for you. Can't make a pick for this one right now. And as soon as I decide who I'm going to go with in this fight and several others on this card where one of the two fighters are making their debut, I will try to update it in the description. I know some of you guys really care about that, but I'm definitely going to have to base my pick on others' analysis for this one as well as the rest of the fights with debuting fighters. But next fight at lightweight, Frankie Perez versus Mark Diakiese. I'm going to take Diakiese here, who had a nice showing against Lucas Sayevsky in his debut. A hyper athletic fighter, throws a lot of wild, unorthodox strikes, and for the most part was having his way with Sayevsky. Did get taken down in that fight, and Sayevsky, did make him work a bit on the feet, hit him, with some elbows and some hard shots. But Diakiese's athleticism allowed him to pull through and get a pretty convincing finish in that fight. I feel that Diakiese might be one of these fighters who just goes crazy with that athleticism and doesn't really hone in on his fundamentals, and that'll probably catch up to him at some point, especially against a good wrestler. But Frankie Perez, I don't think is the guy to expose him. Perez, frankly, I think everyone kind of built him up to be a better fighter than he is because of his unexpected and very early retirement after only a second UFC fight. But honestly, if we just review his 2 UFC fights, he got very badly dominated by Johnny Case and eventually TKO'd on the ground, and then had a quick knockout over Sam Stout, which it's a veteran name, but I don't think really that big of an accomplishment. So I still feel like Perez, at least his complete game, is still an unknown in the UFC. And knocking out Sam Stout in the first round, that's not enough for me to take him over a guy who is very athletically gifted and has a lot of confidence in his striking and is very unorthodox. So I think Diakiese's athleticism, well, I probably is over reliant on it. It'll probably be enough to get him through here. So I'm going to take Diakiese. I'm going to take him by TKO. All right, at featherweight, Thiago Trator versus newcomer Shane Burgos, another guy who I don't know who he is. Thiago Trator, a fighter who has not been really impressive in the UFC, has not really faced any relevant competition. His 2 wins over Akbar Areola and Clay Collard in the Areola fight seemed like a pretty aggressive, high-pace Muay Thai fighter. Pretty much just teed off on Areola for the entire fight against Clay Collard. Uses wrestling a bit more, and then got knocked out in the first round by Mike De La Torre. So just seems inconsistent and seems like a guy who is not going to reach any kind of relevant stature in the division. So not really high on Trator. Don't know Burgos. Again, not going to make a pick. We have to move on. At middleweight, Andrew Sanchez versus Trevor Smith. This is a better matchup. I like Sanchez, winner of TUF 23, and he's dropping to middleweight for this fight. Won the show at light heavyweight. And I think these guys are kind of mirror images of each other, but I think Sanchez, not only is he younger and seems to be more of an intelligent fighter, but I just think he's a little sharper in all the areas where Trevor Smith, where his skills lie, which is wrestling, control grappling, and kind of a brawling style of striking. I think Sanchez is cleaner with his stand-up. We saw that in the Eric Spicely fight on TUF. Really beat up on a guy who just wanted to grapple with him. And Smith's striking, I expect, should be better than that, although his striking I don't think is really that good. Had a really sloppy brawl with Ed Herman and ended up losing a decision, and really showed no defense in that fight, and got knocked out by Thiago Leites, also by Cal Magalhães, both first-round knockout losses. So I think Sanchez has the cleaner, slightly more technical stand-up, and then Smith is one of these grinding grapplers, really likes to tie up in the feet, get those drag takedowns, and just smother guys from top position. And that's Sanchez's game too. Did it really well against Khalil Roundtree. Was able to take any space away and really just smother him in the clinch and never let him get going on the feet. A big physical guy and has okay takedowns. I think Sanchez can beat him at that game. I just think he's a more technical clinch fighter. A little better with his takedowns. So I expect it to be a grinding, back and forth clinch fest. Both guys are working for takedowns, but Sanchez, I think, is just slightly better in all those areas. So I'm going to take Sanchez by decision. All right, at middleweight, Joe Gigliotti versus another newcomer, Gerald Meerschaert. Gigliotti fought Trevor Smith in his last fight, which was his debut, and just got dominated, got smothered, got taken down repeatedly, and could not fight off of his back, couldn't get back up to his feet, couldn't stop the takedown. So a pretty unimpressive performance from Gigliotti. And Trevor Smith, while he is good in that style, is not really in the upper ranks of middleweight at all, really, which is probably the thinnest division in the UFC. And to get that badly dominated by a guy, a mid-level guy in that division, I don't think is indicative of a really hot prospect. So not high on Gigliotti after that loss to Smith, but again, we got a newcomer, and I can't make a pick. So welterweight Randy Brown versus yet another newcomer, and this is not the last of them, not even close. Brian Camozzi. I'm a little interested here. He has that hook. He's Camozzi's brother. And again, I don't know him. Randy Brown, though, one of these guys who came into the UFC off of the #1 hit reality show, Dana White's Looking for a Fight. And all the guys that have come off of that show, at least that I know of, Cody East and Sage Northcutt, none of these guys deserve to be in the UFC, and Randy Brown probably doesn't either. He's really tall for the division. He's athletic, has a lot of length, and that allowed him to get a Hail Mary comeback submission against Eric Montano, who is probably one of the least skilled fighters in the UFC, and he was dominating Randy Brown with wrestling and almost submitted him at one point on the mat. And then he had that win over what was the guy? The guy that fought Matt Dwyer, and that was not a very impressive fight. Had to really rely on the clinch, and it was just a messy fight. Randy Brown did not look good. Got submitted by Michael Graves. So I'm just not very high on Randy Brown. His athletic seems to like to play the submission game. Was doing some okay guard playing against Michael Graves, but does not have a complete game. He's still extremely green. His striking game seems to be almost non-existent. So, yeah, like I said, I don't think he really deserves to be in the UFC right now, but does have some submission ability, and that's all I can say. So next fight of women's strawweight, Juliana Lima versus JJ Aldrich, another newcomer. Juliana Lima, she has a decent wrestling grappling game. She can hit takedowns pretty well and pretty consistently over the course of a fight. She did that to was it Nina Ansaroff, I think, that she fought in her debut, and then gave Carla Esparza a fairly competitive fight, and even on the feet, challenged her fairly well. But other than that, wrestling and grappling doesn't seem to be a very dangerous fighter. Doesn't seem to be a submission threat, so seems a bit one-dimensional. But I think this will really depend on Aldrich's takedown defense and if she can, how well she is at creating separation. Because if she can't do that, Juliana Lima seems like she's very effective at implementing that wrestling game. But yeah, again, I'm going to skip over this one for now. Next fight at light heavyweight, Corey Anderson versus Sean O'Connell. Corey Anderson, we have a technical kickboxer with solid wrestling, although he's been plagued by having a weak chin, being somewhat easy to hurt. And Sean O'Connell is the complete opposite, very untechnical, but a brawler, a very willing brawler, and not much else to his game besides winging unset up wild haymakers. So I'm definitely going with Anderson. Much more technical striker. I think he should be able to out wrestle Sean O'Connell. But like I said, Anderson, he's been plagued by having a suspect chin. Was put out by Jean Vellante, and then Shogun in a fight where I thought he was very clearly outpointing him and outworking him. He got tagged a couple of times at the end of rounds in that fight. It ended up costing him the decision. So there's, I think, a pretty slight chance that O'Connell can do that. He is powerful, but the guys he's beaten are, no one of note. Anthony Perez, a 40-year-old dude, and that was the last fight in his UFC career, or maybe second to last one. I think he fought Vellante after that. And Matt Van Buren, who was a washout from Tough and almost finished Sean O'Connell in that fight. So O'Connell's wins have not been over high-level guys or even solid prospects. Corey Anderson, the more technical striker and the better wrestler, just has a far more complete game. I think he avoids that power of O'Connell and outpoints him, out-wrestles him for a decision. All right, at light heavyweight again, Gian Vellante versus another newcomer. But thank goodness this is the last of them, Saparbek Safarov. Don't know this guy, can't make a pick. Gian Vellante is just a very inconsistent fighter. When he's able to implement his game to the best of his abilities, he is a pretty good, clean kickboxer. He mixes up his strikes with the leg kicks pretty well and has power, which has really saved him in some fights that were not going his way. And that's his thing. Even in the fights that he's won, he usually has come back from being in trouble and almost put out, like the Cody Donovan fight. Was getting lit up on the feet before landing the knockout shot. Corey Anderson was really pouring it on this guy before he landed again a knockout punch. And even in fights where he's looked really good, like the Tom Lawler fight, really working his clean kickboxing game, he gets knocked out himself. So a very inconsistent fighter, can never seem to really put together 3 solid rounds where he stays out of trouble. But when he is firing on all cylinders, he is a pretty good technical kickboxer. So I don't know. I don't know Safarov, but Vellante, never be too confident in picking him to win, because he always seems to either be down early or give the fight away when he's doing well. All right, at heavyweight, Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Hamilton. I'm going to take Francis Ngannou. This seems like a total setup fight for him to look really good. Anthony Hamilton might be a step up from Mikhajlovic, but maybe not Curtis Blades and maybe not Luis Enrique. Ngannou has just looked really good, has stellar takedown defense, very technical striker by heavyweight standards, and an extremely powerful striker, and a diverse... Not sure where I was because my camera crapped out there for a second, but I'm taking Ngannou. Anthony Hamilton is a very limited fighter. He's been able to get by guys almost solely because of his size, like against who's the Daniel Milanchek was able to press him against the cage, hold him there, wasn't even that successful with his takedowns. Does have some power, and I'll admit seems to be improving his striking technique, or at least ability somewhat. Had a first round knockout over Damian Grabowski in his last fight. But against Shamil Abdurakhimov, got nothing done in that fight, was technically outboxed. And Francis Ngannou, really lethal striker with a lot of variety to his striking and superb takedown defense. I think we'll be able to keep it on the feet very easily and connect big on Anthony Hamilton and get him out of there pretty easily. So I'm going to take him, Francis Ngannou, by first round knockout. All right, and the main event at heavyweight, Derek Lewis versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. I'm going to take Derek Lewis in this fight by knockout, mainly because he's a far more dangerous and more powerful striker. He's a more high volume striker, and he is a more aggressive striker who comes forward and is always chasing that finish. And Shamil Abdurakhimov is almost the polar opposite in all of those respects. He is not a powerful striker. We haven't seen fight-ending power, or even power that puts his opponent in any kind of momentary trouble. We haven't seen that power from him. And he is not... I wouldn't say is low volume, but is much more content to technically outbox you and pick his shots than he is to chase the finish or overexert himself trying to hurt his opponent. So I think if Abdurakhimov wins, it will definitely be by decision, and especially considering that this is a 5-round fight. I don't think there's any chance that he can last 5 rounds with Lewis without getting clipped at least once. And Derek Lewis is the kind of guy who will not be able to technically box with Abdurakhimov over the course of however many rounds, but he only needs to land one clean shot, and he has probably some of the biggest power in the heavyweight division. So I think Lewis will definitely catch him at some point and put him out. And the more, another really important thing to consider here is that Derek Lewis is getting better. He's just developing in areas where he was weak. His takedown defense seems to be getting better fight to fight. Like against Gonzaga, submission specialist got put on his back. Gonzaga had him where he wanted him, and Lewis survived, got back to his feet, and got the knockout. Against Roy Nelson, was pretty successful in defending the takedown, not so much in creating separation, staying off the fence. But in that Roy Nelson fight, I think really showed improved kickboxing. He had a big speed advantage over Nelson. He was the one beating him to the punch. And he was really putting his strikes together very well, throwing big combinations, mixing in kicks, throwing those knees in the clinch against the fence. And he just looks like he's really rounding out his kickboxing game. And, we've seen him completely dominated by guys who are more technical on the feet than him, like Mitrione and Sean Jordan. Both of those guys had, I think, first-round knockouts against him. So he is getting better. He's developing. Abdurakhimov is a pretty big guy. I'm not sure how their height and weight match up, but I think Abdurakhimov will be the bigger guy, and Lewis, I think, can still, that's still an area of weakness for him is the ground. But Abdurakhimov, we just haven't seen that wrestling from him in any of his other fights. So I don't expect him to take down Lewis. And even if he does, like I said, Lewis has been showing improvement there. And yeah, on the feet, I think Lewis is just going to be the one throwing the bigger combinations. Abdurakhimov seems to be a lower output technical striker with not much power. So I like Lewis to connect, hit the button, and put him out. And I think it's going to happen. I'm going to say within the first 3 rounds. So yeah, Derek Lewis by knockout. Those are my predictions for Fight Night Albany, Lewis versus Abdurakhimov. Thank you for watching, guys. Check out my predictions for UFC 206. Those should be up. They'll be linked in the description. Check out that video where I recap my picks for the last several events. And follow me on Twitter. Link also in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. Thank you, guys. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.